So it goes like this. I will retrieve the secret of great combustions and great communications. I would say storm. I would say river. Tornado, I would say. I would say leaf. I would say tree. I will be watered by all rains, dampened by all dews. I will rumble onward like frenetic blood on the slow stream of my eye, my words like wild horses, like radiant children, like clots, like curfew bells in the temple ruins, like precious stones so distant as to discourage miners. He who will not understand me will not understand the roaring of a tiger. And yes, it's good to have poetry. It's good to bring in these words because we're going to deal with language right now. Language is my passion. And the reason why I would say this because we need to have a better interaction and dynamic with language. I'm always concerned that young people are creating amazing language today, but the older people aren't able to feed it back. Hear what I'm saying? It used to be that older people were the poets and the language people and the ones that could bring it to young people. And it used to be young people would look up and say, I want to be like this person. He's got words, he's got language. And I remember in the 60s, the last poets and all these people that used to speak this truth, and everybody fell into it because it just cast a spell on you. But now it's the young people with language. They're the ones putting it out there. They're the ones spinning all those stories and tales and stuff like that, and they're not getting a lot of guidance, but they're putting it out there. And it's good that they're doing it. But it's important that some of us who are older also get into language and the power of it and how we can impact the world with words. Because words sometimes, or a word, can save somebody's life. You hear what I'm saying? And words, dialogue, somebody talking to somebody, heart to heart, can probably do more good for anybody who's troubled and pain in those hells than almost any big, giant, $1,000 million program, billion-dollar prison system, anything that people put into it. Sometimes that works out better than anything. So I wanted to express that because to me, that's important. One of the first things we did in this plan was to fight with language. The mayor of LA, who I think is trying to do something, I'm not here to down anybody. I look at LA as having a lot of problems, a lot of issues, but also like the rest of, like what's happening here, some really good people. And in LA, we have an extra big burden to carry because LA is known as the gang capital of the United States and probably in the world. If you don't know how bad things are, from 1980 to the year 2000, there was an estimated 10,000 young people killed in the streets of LA due to gang violence. That's like a civil war in some country. The death rate for South Central LA alone is as great as the death rate of the worst countries of murder and homicides in the world, including South Africa and El Salvador. The death rate of Latinos, males, is twice that. The death rate of African American males is twice the Latino rate. This is the US of A. This is not some place that you don't have to deal with. This is our country. LA has a big burden. And unfortunately, the LA response has not been very good. Mostly suppression, mostly the prisons. The majority of people feeding into the very vast California prison system come from LA. That's not an answer. That's a burden that we have to carry in that city. The gang injunctions, another big issue, a big problem. The squeezing of communities, instead of bringing communities together, instead of getting young people and adults and mentors and teachers and people coming together and parents and all the people, they squeeze the communities. They don't just criminalize individuals. They don't just criminalize a couple of people. They criminalize whole neighborhoods. And this, as you know, is being sent out around the country. This is the LA model. And it's not working, and yet they still send it out. One of the first things we did, the mayor has a new gang reduction plan. And again, I think this mayor is trying. I have to say that he's probably the first mayor to even go there, so that's a big effort. But he needs to be challenged. It's not good enough. A gang reduction plan. Most of what they want to do, and I'll try to summarize it quickly, is to say that there will be 70% prevention and 30% intervention. But it sounds really good, except that it's all being run out of the Homeland Security Office. Yeah. And the police are involved with it all the way through. The gang reduction zones are actually zones based on police districts. So we're saying, okay, we don't want to say we don't need police. We don't want to do that. We need the police. We need the district attorney's office. We need the whole system. What we need, though, is to be part of a whole package that's based on community leading the way. It's a whole different concept. Because we want the police officers to be able to work with us in a way that's respectful, meaningful, and with some dignity. We need it both ways. So we don't want to say we don't want them involved, but what we have found that when it's being led by law enforcement and not community, this is what you're seeing, squeezing of communities. And when you squeeze communities, what are you doing? You're pushing people out. You're not solving the problem. All you're doing is pushing the problem outward or somewhere else. And I'm sure this is happening in the Bay Area, but in LA, just so you know, we still got a lot of gangs in LA, in South Central and East LA, but now we got LA gangs all around the surrounding area, Inland Empire, San Diego County, Orange County, Lancaster, Palmdale. They're all spreading out. And not only that, you got them in Arizona, in Nevada, you got them in Idaho. I was in Storm Lake, Idaho, in the middle of nowhere, and they had LA gangs there. They were all worried about the Sur 13 gangs that were all over Idaho. I was in Delaware, Wilmington, Delaware, and there was a big gang war between Latin Kings and Sur 13. So what happens when you squeeze communities, you're not solving the problem. You're just spreading it out. And as you know, because I've written about this, and I just said earlier, El Salvador, Guatemala, Honduras, Mexico, you have LA gangs all over those places now. And so, therefore, we're squeezing it on an international level. I even have heard that we have LA-based gangs in Cambodia from Cambodian kids that came from war in Cambodia, grew up in LA, joined the gangs, got deported back, and now have LA gangs in Cambodia. In Armenia, there's LA gangs there. In other words, we're spreading it around the world. Because when you squeeze communities, you don't deal with the root of the problem. All you're doing is spreading it out, and you're not even solving the problem there. Somebody could say, well, if the gang injunctions and the gang enhancements could actually solve the problem in LA, maybe somebody could have the case and say, well, it's too bad it's happening over there, but we're solving it here. It's not even solving it in LA because it's still bad and it's worse than it's ever been in LA. So we have to think of a new imagination and a new way of doing it. One of the things we wanted to do was the language was important so that we include a language that is positive, not just what you're against. Sure, you don't want gang violence. Sure, you don't want any more deaths. You don't want all these things. But what are you really for? Every program seems to be about the problems and the trouble and the deficits in our community and kind of ways of correcting it. We need an imaginative way of approaching this so that it's not just looking at the problems of our community and looking at our community and say, we're all a bunch of bad and messed up people and we deserve to be corrected. We need to have a plan that says this is what's good about the community. The community already has internal resources. It already has people with brains. It already has, even young people in the gangs can be useful for peace. That's what we got to be able to say. Even the gang members can be useful for peace.